This chart tracks a massive financial obligation. Global debt has reached $305 trillion. A significant portion of that number materialized recently, with $45 trillion added immediately following the COVID-19 pandemic. When we hear national debt, we picture political deficits and government borrowing, but dividing that total reveals a different borrower. Corporations hold the absolute majority of this debt at 53. To understand the scale of that figure, look at this comparative breakdown. Even if you take the debt of the next four most indebted nations, China, Japan, France, and Italy, and stack them together, their combined total still falls short of what the United States owes alone. Yet, foreign nations and global investors eagerly purchase U.S. treasuries and bonds. They do this because American government debt is treated as the safest, most reliable asset available in global finance. U.S. government debt acts as the unquestioned collateral backing for worldwide banking and corporate lending. If the American debt system falters, the foundation supporting the entire $305 trillion global stack begins to crumble. Economists evaluate a country's ability to manage its borrowing using the debt-to-GDP ratio. This metric compares a government's total financial burden directly against its actual economic output, all the goods and services it produces in a year. This scale shows where major economies sit. The global average for government debt to GDP rests at 95.5%. The United States exceeds that average, sitting at 116%. Meanwhile, outliers like Japan carry a staggering 239% ratio. The United States controls its own fiat currency. It issues the very dollars required to settle its obligations. If it holds $35.4 trillion in debt, the obvious question arises: why doesn't the government simply print the money to pay it all off? The answer has nothing to do with the physical limitations of printing presses. The true constraint lies in the immediate, catastrophic macroeconomic reactions triggered the moment that new currency enters the system. The first consequence is mathematical. Printing massive amounts of dollars drastically increases the money supply without increasing the actual volume of available goods and services. You suddenly have an enormous surplus of dollars chasing the exact same amount of products. Prices skyrocket, triggering hyperinflation. The purchasing power of the dollar collapses, making everyday necessities completely unaffordable. Faced with runaway inflation, the central bank has exactly one effective tool. It must aggressively hike interest rates to pull money back out of circulation and slow the economy down. Those sudden interest rate hikes hit the corporate world immediately. Remember that 53% corporate debt slice from earlier? Companies rely on regular refinancing to survive. Under these new rates, their borrowing costs become astronomically expensive. If the US government tries to erase its 28% slice of global debt by printing money, the resulting interest rate hikes trigger mass bankruptcies across the 53% corporate sector. Erasing the national debt this way paralyzes global economic growth entirely. Since printing away the debt guarantees a crash, the US is trapped in a cycle of refinancing. It must constantly replace old, low-interest debt that is maturing with newly issued high-interest bonds. This creates a rapidly swelling interest burden. Tracking foreign investment reveals an alarming trend on this chart. Historically, Japan and China were the largest buyers of US debt. In 2006, they held nearly 50% of the total foreign holdings. By 2023, their share had fallen to just 25%. This massive sell-off indicates that major geopolitical players are quietly losing faith in the long-term viability of an economic model that relies on perpetual debt expansion. Simultaneously, the BRICS nations, including Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are actively building financial infrastructure to bypass US payment systems. They are beginning to settle international trade directly in their own alternative currencies. This coordinated effort directly challenges the dollar status as the global reserve currency. If nations don't need dollars to trade, the global demand for newly printed US money drops drastically. Global central banks are already choosing a tangible alternative. Instead of hoarding US paper debt as their primary safety net, they are actively stockpiling physical gold reserves at record rates. The monopoly is fracturing further through the expiration of long-standing exclusive agreements. For decades, Saudi Arabia strictly sold its oil in US dollars. that is no longer a guaranteed mandate. If global demand for the dollar continues to fall, the US loses its safety valve. Any new money the government prints will be trapped domestically, with nowhere to export it, accelerating the catastrophic inflation loop we examined earlier. The $305 trillion global debt structure is heavily leveraged on one thing: trust in the US Treasury. If that foundational layer cracks under the weight of mounting interest and lost international faith, the massive corporate debt sitting on top of it will collapse, dragging the worldwide economy down with it.